This is a story about grief, growth, and finding laughter in the worst places. Through bad jobs, good friends, and one very dramatic parrot, Jake learns that surviving isn't the end. It's the beginning. And sometimes the only way to rise is to first fall flat on your face with style. Welcome to Story Time with Papa Al. Let's see what Jake has to say.
They say you remember the exact moment your life changes. For me, it wasn't a dramatic explosion or a lightning bolt of realization. It was a Tuesday. Dad packed the dishwasher into the back of his pickup truck and drove away. I wish I were joking. I don't know if he just really liked that dishwasher, or if it was his way of making a point. Like, I may have shattered your childhood, but at least I'm taking the appliance that still works. Whatever his reasoning, there it went, clunking down the driveway like a hostage. Mom just stood there in the kitchen, holding a coffee mug that said, "World's okayest parent." Fitting. I didn't say anything. I just watched the tailgate bounce closed and wondered if we still had paper plates. My name's Jake, and this was how junior year started. To be clear, my parents' marriage hadn't exactly been a Nicholas Sparks novel. More like an off-brand sitcom with passive-aggressive silences and arguments about whose turn it was to pick up the dog poop. Still, I guess I thought they'd stick it out until I graduated, or at least until they finished watching that crime docuseries together. But no. Dad hit the eject button, moved in with a woman named Sharon, and suddenly my weekends became a weird custody dance involving a folding bed, awkward silences, and reheated mac and cheese. The first time I visited his new place, Sharon tried to hug me. She smelled like cucumbers and bad choices. "So nice to finally meet you," she said in that fake voice adults use when they're trying to seem friendly, but clearly want you to disappear into a black hole. "You too," I lied, staring at the giant Buddha statue in their living room. I guess enlightenment was part of the divorce package. Back home, Mom went full post-divorce warrior. She started doing yoga in the living room, talking to the dog like he was a therapist, and buying things from late-night infomercials. One morning, I walked in to find her wearing a waist-trimming belt that buzzed like an angry bee. "It's supposed to stimulate my core," she said. "You sound like a microwave," I told her. She flipped me off, lovingly of course. That's the thing about Mom. She was tough, in the funny, biting way that made everyone think she had it all together. She didn't. But neither did I, so we made a good team. Most nights, we ate takeout on the couch and binge-watched crime shows, each of us pretending not to miss the clunky sound of the dishwasher that once tied our family together. And then, one night, she coughed. Not just a little cough. The kind of cough that sounds like your lungs are trying to escape. "You okay?" I asked. "Probably just allergies," she said, waving me off. Yeah, spoiler alert, it wasn't allergies. I don't remember the exact moment we found out, but I do remember the doctor's eyebrows. Thick, serious, like they had their own moral compass. He kept making this face, like he was about to tell us a tornado had flattened our house. I sat there, slouched in a chair that smelled like hand sanitizer and old people, waiting for the punchline. "Stage 3, he said, "non-small cell lung cancer." I looked at Mom. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She just nodded and said, "Well, crap." Classic Mom. You'd think everything would have changed right then, but it didn't. Not at first. Life has a weird way of pretending to be normal, even after the world explodes. I still went to school, still had to do algebra homework, still got stuck in a group project with Tyler Hartman, who thought mitochondria was a dinosaur. Meanwhile, Mom started treatment. Chemo on Mondays, nausea on Tuesdays, pretending to be fine on Wednesdays. I watched her get smaller. Not just physically, though she did lose weight, and her hair, and her tolerance for daytime TV. But it was more than that. The sparkle behind her sarcasm dimmed. She tried to hide it, but I could see the edges fraying. One night, I made dinner, microwave lasagna, which I burned, and she laughed so hard she cried. Then she just cried. "I don't want you to see me like this," she whispered, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter like it might take her away. "Too late," I said, and I hugged her even though I didn't know if I was doing it right. It felt weird, like hugging a memory that hadn't finished happening yet. And then came the day she couldn't get out of bed. Just like that. One Tuesday she was shuffling around the house in fuzzy socks and mocking game show contestants, and the next she couldn't even lift her head. Hospice came. The word itself sounded too clean, too polite for what it meant. I tried to be brave. I read to her. I sat by her bed. I told her dumb stories about school, and how our dog, Mookie, kept farting so aggressively that he cleared an entire room during my history presentation on Zoom. She smiled, barely, but it was something. The night she died, I stayed up reading one of her favorite books out loud, The Secret Life of Bees. I didn't get it, but she liked the parts with the sisters. She used to say that love didn't fix everything, but it made the broken parts softer. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, staring at her hand. It didn't feel like a hand anymore, just something left behind. The next morning, I made coffee. For one, after Mom died, I thought the world might pause. Like, just take a day off out of respect. Cancel school, shut down Starbucks, maybe even dim the sun a little. Nope. Instead, I had a geometry test, 3 spam calls before noon, and an overdue library fine. Life kept doing its thing, unbothered. Legally speaking, I was still a minor, which meant I got passed around like a hot potato with emotional baggage. Dad, who apparently had a full calendar of new life adventures with Sharon and her new age friends, offered to take me in, if necessary. Translation: only if literally no one else will. Fortunately, my Aunt Patty stepped up. She lived across town with her 5 cats, a salt lamp in every room, and an emotional support parrot named Dwayne, who only knew how to say, "Oh hell no." She meant well, really. She just wasn't people-shaped anymore. She'd gone full hippie, crocheted socks, homemade deodorant, and the belief that rubbing garlic on your feet could cure sadness. I didn't have the energy to argue. School was a circus. Half the teachers treated me like I was made of porcelain. The other half forgot I existed. Then came the pity looks. From everyone, even the janitor. People started sentences with, "I heard about your mom," and then didn't finish them. What were they going to say? "I heard about your mom. Anyway, can I copy your Spanish homework?" I spent a lot of lunches alone, sketching in the back of my notebook, little doodles of planets with frowny faces, cartoon lungs flipping me off, and one particularly dramatic drawing of me riding a T-Rex into the sunset with the caption, "At least dinosaurs don't ghost you." Then came Ms. Green. She taught English and looked like she walked out of a thrift store war zone. Big glasses, purple boots, always had coffee stains on her blouse. But she was the first person who talked to me like I was still a person, not a walking PSA for childhood trauma. "You wrote this?" she asked one day, holding my creative writing assignment like it was radioactive. "Unless I've got a ghostwriter," I said. She snorted. "It's morbid, funny, weird. I like it." I blinked. That's a lot of conflicting feedback. "Exactly," she said, tossing the paper onto my desk. "You should write more." That was the first time in months someone told me to do something instead of survive something. Then, out of nowhere, this kid named Miguel plopped down next to me at lunch. I'd seen him around, big personality, dyed blue streak in his hair, walked like the hallway was his catwalk. He nodded toward my sketchbook. You the one who drew that T-Rex flipping off a unicorn? Maybe, I said cautiously. You're weird, he grinned. You want to join our table? We're playing lunchtime Uno and slandering each other's music taste. I looked around. For once, I didn't have the urge to say no. And just like that, I wasn't eating alone anymore. The first time I applied for a job, I spelled my own name wrong on the application. Jame. I stared at it for a full minute, debating if it was worth starting over. It wasn't. That's how I became Jame the sandwich artist at Substorm, a place that paid minimum wage and maximum emotional damage. Still, money was money. Aunt Patty's idea of allowance was letting me use her essential oils. Spoiler, lavender doesn't pay for snacks. The job was fine. Ish. I smelled like deli meat 24/7, and one time I accidentally put mayonnaise on a guy's meatball sub, and he looked like I personally insulted his grandmother. But there was something weirdly comforting about having somewhere to be, even if that somewhere involved plastic gloves and passive-aggressive customers. Outside of work, life was surprisingly okay-ish. Miguel dragged me into his weird world of chaos and confidence. His friend group was small but loyal. A theater kid named June, who spoke only in dramatic sighs, and Devin, a wannabe tech billionaire who kept pitching terrible app ideas like Tuna Finder for cat owners and Cough Pal, which was literally just a button that played coughing sounds. We were a misfit group of gloriously broken weirdos. One Friday night, we ended up at Devin's house watching bad horror movies and eating enough pizza to make our stomachs legally ineligible for gym class. I laughed so hard I cried. For once, the crying didn't feel tragic. Back at school, Ms. Green gave me an actual notebook. Leather cover. Real pages. Write something true, she said, tapping it with her red-painted fingernail. Not pretty, not perfect, just true. So I did. I wrote about Mom, about how she used to dance in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching, about the sound the oxygen machine made at night, a little hiss, like the world was breathing with her. I wrote about Dad and the dishwasher and the way grief feels like a prank that never ends. I also wrote a poem about Mookie's flatulence that got published in the school paper. Small wins. Eventually, I joined the debate team. Miguel said it was because I liked arguing. I said it was because they had free snacks. Both were true. I wasn't great at first. I talked too fast, used sarcasm as a defense mechanism, surprise, and once referred to the opposing team's argument as emotional salad. But over time, I got better, sharper, focused. Turns out grief makes you weirdly persuasive. Nothing like confronting mortality to help you crush a debate about universal basic income. And somehow, beneath all the chaos, the ache started to feel less sharp. Still there. Still waiting in the wings like a sad understudy. But not running the show anymore. Graduation snuck up on me the way emotions do during car commercials. One minute I was barely surviving junior year. The next I was in a shiny cap and gown that made me look like a confused wizard. Aunt Patty cried. Like, ugly cried. Even Dwayne the parrot got emotional and screamed, "Oh, hell no!" right in the middle of the principal's speech. A moment of silence followed. For my dignity. But I made it. Somehow. I wasn't valedictorian. I wasn't prom king. I wasn't most likely to succeed. That went to a kid who once got detention for coding his own AI girlfriend. I didn't have scholarships pouring in, or a 5-year plan, or a savings account that didn't involve loose change and Taco Bell receipts. But I did have a letter. It was for college, state school, nothing fancy. But they wanted me, not despite everything I'd been through, but because of it. My application essay had been the hardest thing I'd ever written. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I wrote about the night I burned the lasagna. I wrote about watching my mom fade in a hospital bed while I cracked jokes about the Golden Girls. I wrote about the weird ache that comes when people stop asking how you're doing, like grief has an expiration date. And I wrote about hope, how it doesn't always look like a sunrise or a big movie moment. Sometimes it's just a parrot yelling at a yoga lamp, or a sandwich job that smells like sadness and pickles, or friends who love you even when your jokes are too dark for the lunch table. After the ceremony, Miguel hugged me so hard, he popped one of the buttons off his shirt. June cried mascara tears all over my robe and shouted, "We survived, you absurd creature." While Devin live-streamed the whole thing and offered me equity in CoughPal, I declined. Later that night, I sat in my room, now free of lava lamps and cat hair, and opened Mom's old copy of The Secret Life of Bees. There was a note tucked inside, written in her messy looping handwriting. "You're stronger than you think. If you ever forget that, I'll remind you from the sky. Probably by knocking over something expensive. Love you more. Always." I laughed. I cried. Mookie farted. It was the full experience. And that was the thing. Life wasn't perfect. I was still figuring stuff out. I still missed her. I still had nightmares where I forgot how to use the microwave. But I was here, breathing, living, laughing at dumb jokes and trying to make people feel something with words. Turns out, falling apart is part of the process. But falling up, that's where the good stuff begins.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storytime with Papa Owl. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe.